Hi, everyone. My name is Manuel Sansili. I'm based in Montreal, Canada, and I'm a designer, researcher, and teacher on the topics of UX, human-computer interaction, haptics, and XR. And I was born in Guadeloupe, which is a small Caribbean island in the French West Indies. So I'm French West Indies. So I'm sorry about the French accent again. And yeah, currently design lead at Unity. I've worked with companies such as IBM, Immersion, MindGeek. So I've been a little bit like Jose, mixing a comparison between art, design, and research. And I think it's really, like you said, about mixing, like, first of all, testing things, putting yourself out there, not be afraid of prototyping and using your different tools to create something unique. And because of my very specific, I would say, island background, my goal is to bring a little bit of earth and nature into the work and consciousness on topics such as diversity, like the amazing panel we have today, but also accessibility, eco-responsibility. So today's talk, I think, is exactly on point. I'm really happy to be surrounded by amazing folks like such. So happy to be here.
Thanks, Manu. And Estella, back to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Estella. I'm currently based in Portland. I'm from Oakland, born and raised. Let's see, XR creative director. I've done a lot of stuff with Google, Tiltbrush, many other teams there. I've done stuff with Adobe, Cartoon Network, Snapchat. Let's see, focuses. I care a lot about ethics and humanity, and I think about what accessibility means for different types of people, different demographics of people. What is how do we bring technology and innovation to more people? And it's not just like one type of demographic. And so that's always on my mind. I have a background in storytelling, visual storytelling, concept art, visual development for animation, illustration, background in web design development, as well as sociology. I'm all over the place. And so I bridge a lot of things. I'm often, in the work that I've done in creative R&D work, is bridging stuff from an artist point of view to technologists, and just kind of trying to lessen that gap between technology and artists, and making sure that we get more artists into technology and innovation, creating the future that we want to see. Currently, right now, really focusing on understanding nature and how nature is like the best designer, and seeing how we can incorporate nature into innovation and technology so they can work together and build a better world for ourselves here.
Thanks so much. And I think everyone sort of touched on kind of why I gathered these individuals together today to have a chat, because, we've all sort of shared communities in the last sort of few years and I guess gone on this bit of this journey together. So I thought it was really, I guess, an interesting conversation to have of where we sort of started and where we are now, which for quite a few of us here is in the NFT space, but not all of us. So I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, that community aspect to start with, because I think that's important. I know that I definitely was using Jose's spreadsheet, the amazing XR artist toolkit. And yeah, I guess I met many of you online. I mean, I'm here in Australia, so, it's hard to connect with people from such a distance. But online, I guess we've all been able to connect a bit more and share just our interests and our passions. And I'm really, I guess, Estella touching on that, the aspects of ethics and nature. And I think we all kind of, I know for myself and probably, Jose and Sutu, one of the reasons we really banded together for the Clean NFTs thing is because we're passionate about that side of, I guess, our lives. So, yeah, talk to me about how you felt, I guess, the community space has helped you progress as an artist. I might throw to Jose first.
It's just been essential. Honestly, like, I really understood that when I was in the Bay Area, new to the Bay Area, happened to meet, Kevin and, or Kevo, if you know him on social, and was brought into the XR artist Facebook group. And from there met so many people in the space. And, I had some health issues back then, and it surprised me how much support I got from that community, folks internationally who donated to my GoFundMe at the time. I'm better now. But, and then moving into the NFT space, I just started to see how essential community was there as well. So whether you are an Ethereum maximalist and you use those platforms specifically, or you're a clean NFT person, or somewhere in between, I really don't see any other way to really make it in these kind of spaces unless you have a community that you're joining, or you're bringing your own that you've cultivated over the years, but to me, that's just the way to go, really, just developing a community and network, bringing value as much as you are taking from the community. I love it. That's my favorite thing.
I think it's so true though, like Jose, because it's like, I think as a bunch of us have kind of grown in this space together, like especially in the VR AR space, like we all know our different strengths, and we can all like help amplify each other, and we know who to call for certain projects. It's like, hey, like Sutu, like how do I do this thing in the AR? Like could I use Eyejack for this? Like Jose, please teach me how to do this. I know you have a document about this. So it's been amazing to like have that. I think I kind of jumped in, but like, I think for myself, when I started, it was so early in the space that like, there were no standards set yet still. And there still aren't, right? Like let's be real, like it's still such a fluctuating industry. And I remember the conversations I would have with Danny Bittman, and we talk about like, how do we create the standards of how to get hired for these gigs or these contracts? And so something we did early on is like, okay, like what is a fair price? Like maybe we should set this as like what our hiring rate should be for these type of contracts. And then like, something that was important for me, I was like, hey, like we're getting contracted by this large company. Can I check with you to see that they're paying me as the same rate? Because you're a white man and I'm not. So I'm like, I want to make sure that like I'm getting the same rate, And so that's what I mean about ethics. And like as a leader in this space, like what are the things that we're thinking about as artists, like making sure that we're paid fairly and doesn't become like the gaming industry or doesn't become like the animation industry. That's something that's been like really important for me.
And that's a really good point. And I think, I really wanted to touch on that some more. And maybe Sutu, you might want to jump in here on how you think that, I guess, as XR artists, working with virtual and augmented reality, how we've come from, I guess, nothing, not that long ago to now where we are able to, I guess, set standards for pricing.
Yeah, it's really tough. I know, like with every kind of new technology that we all seem to dabble in, and we're all kind of like moths to the flame in that regard. I think that's like a theme that we all share. There is like a very generous period at the start where everyone's experimenting and sharing their knowledge, and that's like the community growth, and everyone's like riding that wave of excitement. And I love it. It's the best thing. And I think it's one of the reasons that we do continually like jump into these new fields, because it's an exciting rush to be a part of that movement. But then, of course, you kind of come back to reality. You have to figure out ways to make a living. And also what we find, though, is that the rest of the world is riding on that buzz as well, including like the commercial industry. And, they will be really leveraging that and often leaving artists behind. And I think like what Estella was saying, we actually do need to be a bit assertive there and put our foot down and, fill up that space and make it known, and know for yourself what your value is. And your community will help reinforce that for sure. I think, and I think it's really like thankfully, people like Jose that is fantastic at pulling data together. There is lots of metrics that kind of help us understand the value and the reach of our work and the influence that it has. Manu's here from Unity. Have you heard his intro before? These are huge corporations that are really at a point now where they're starting to realize the value of partnering up with artists. The more that they can partner up with artists, ultimately they're going to bring in more artists onto their platforms and things like this. And this is another thing that we're starting to see happen more of. Snap is another example that have been really progressive in this space of actually understanding the value of artists. There's been a lot of support. Don Stevenson, for example, who's kind of become the face of the spectacles for Snapchat more recently. But this is a fantastic example of the company lifting up a fantastic creator and educator in the space. But it's also I have conversations with Don, and I'm like, I hope they're paying you well, man. You are being you are the face for the company right now. You are the future of creators in this new AR space. So the actual negotiation, what you are worth, asking those questions, talking to your friends, getting some different ideas of pricing. But in the same way that we experiment with the technologies, we should experiment with what we're charging clients and stuff, I think.
I just want to add something to that, just a little quick thing for anyone that's listening. If you're an artist and if a company wants you to be part of their marketing campaign, know that you should be paid for that because they're using your face and your persona for this campaign and whatever else you represent that comes with the table. So for me, for instance, when I get I'm my own brand. And so I come with it all my previous clients as well. So there's a certain reputation that comes with it. So just know that you should be paid for any type of marketing campaigns as well. Just a little hint.
Good. Definitely a good point there. So I guess my next question is around sort of, what avenues there are specifically, or, what avenues we've had the opportunity to use augmented reality. So I might start with Manu. And ask you that question. So, how have you been able to use your skills to get paid?
It's really funny. I think I'm really different from the rest of the crowd when it comes to the money relationship with my art, because I never actually create with the actual pricing in mind or how I will sell it, which is weird because I think nowadays people like to experiment with their art because there is a money at the end of it. And I think, of course, with the most recent hype around NFTs, people have been seeing artists that are literally unknown that had the opportunity finally to be seen and to receive what they all do. And I'm so happy that a lot of them are actually getting paid for what they do. And I think a lot of newcomers or people that are maybe shy about showing the world what they are creating in the safety of their home are finally taking that as an opportunity to maybe talk and share. And I'm just happy that it shows a path for these people. When it comes to me, it's a little bit different because my parents are both artists. And when I was a kid, they told me, don't do art. You're never going to get paid. And it's kind of a running gag that I ended up being a designer. And because I did a computer science background. And for me, it was always a struggle my entire life that I will never get money from art, so I should do design instead because it's the scientific way. It's the computer science way. I enjoy gaming. I enjoy 3D. I can do that on my own time, but I will never get money from it. Let's just try to work as much as I can, get actual full-time employment from companies so I can get a salary there. And hopefully one day I will retire and have the time to do art. The life doesn't go this way, and you probably will never have time to make art if you wait until you're retired. So I took a different approach, and I realized that yes, at least I get a job, and I'm lucky enough and very privileged to have a chance to have a job nowadays and to be able to live with it. And then that gives me a sense of freedom when it comes to the art, because I don't try to make it with the sense of how much I will sell it or will it be able to sell. And I take the approach, and that's why I love the Economies community, and I reflect with what Sutu, Estella, and Jose was saying when it comes to the community aspect. For me, art is like a hobby. It's my secret pleasure. It's where I want to be able to do whatever the I want. And working with Hikandang and seeing the growth of even the website, like it's one of the fastest growth community when it comes to the technicality, the features, the people behind, and just the sense of cohesiveness and how everybody is helping each other. And at the same time, I was trying to get rid of all the main media platform where I felt like I had this pressure to either do the same as everybody else to get maybe an opportunity to sell, or if I did something too unique, no one will really want it. You needed the vanity metrics, you needed social medias, you needed everything else that we already know. With Hikandang, it was different. I could be no one, again, like a renewal, a second chance at the internet thing, and be able to project something, be part of a movement that you felt like you were also influencing as it grew. And whether or not I sold my first NFT for like one XTZ, it was like $4 at the time, I was as excited because the goal for me was, again, never to sell it, but to have almost like a gallery. So I take it as a portfolio of my 3D exploration, but also some design, video behind the scene of what I do. So some of my NFT maybe will never sell because the intent is never to actually sell the piece, but to give a different window on another version of myself. So I use it right now, and hopefully continue to evolve to a point where all these videos that are super heavy start loading a bit faster, because right now my collection is so hard to load. But I use it as a portfolio, and it gave me the opportunity to be seen in a very specific way. And then I use that exposure to be able to have an impact on my community, to be able to speak in situations like this one. And I never do it with a money perspective, but by growing that presence, by growing that leadership, like Estella was saying, and by actually changing the narrative, having transparent discussion about money pricing, not being afraid to ask bold questions and to represent your community there, that's where these other, I would say, consequence opportunities happen. So being able to be a speaker at a conference, being able to actually lead a project, or to start your own. So I think aside from even the art itself, which definitely should be a source of money, but you should also be able to see this new era as a way to expand on your different endeavors and to grow this brand, this personal brand. And I really love when Estella was saying this, because that's exactly how I see it.
Yeah, I think it's often a bit of a struggle for us as artists to. We might have project work or contract work where we're working for a client, and so with that comes obviously their input into what we might be creating. Where we also as artists do our own personal work, I suppose, and some of us, the Tilt Brush crew, I suppose, do a lot of just our own kind of personal stuff. And I guess I saw sort of early on that there was a lot of work being put into just creating these amazing pieces of virtual reality artwork that just got posted on Instagram, and that was it. And while I value so much the experimentation and just sharing your design work and your style, I also think that how you can actually get paid for that, so that you don't burn out just being creative for no reason, for no outlet. So that might be something that I might throw to Sutu on as well, because I know for years you've done a lot of amazing personal work, and how you've been able to turn that into revenue for yourself as an artist.
Yeah, it's been. I'm very. I've had to train myself to become like a fantastic grant writer. That's been one of the things for my personal works. I would really be the grant detective as well, sort of figuring out what's available. And in Australia, it's like there are some pretty good funding programs around. But also internationally, there's like platforms like Artivive that are regularly putting up community-funded grants. So I think it's really important to be conscious of these things. These grants become available sort of in higher numbers, usually like when a new technology emerges, and usually like there's grants for Unity, for example. I just applied for the Unity for a Humanity grant for our Breonna Taylor project. And these might not cover the whole cost of the projects. But one thing that I've come to realize is there's a network effect when you get a big sponsor on board. So if you do get like 25 grand from Unity, and they're also saying that they're going to offer support for publicity and also their technical support, of course, then if you go and show your project or present your project to some other funding bodies and you say, well, Unity's on board, they go, oh, Unity's on board. Like, well, then we want to be a part of that party, you know? So it's super important to keep that in mind. If you're doing, I know before you were talking about sort of social justice and community development projects, this is also really difficult to get funding for. But it is, you know, there are a lot of people and organizations out there that do want to support these types of projects. You do have to do your homework to find the community and the audience that will support your project. One thing that's crucial, this is specifically in Australia, but I'm sure it's, you know, it's a principle that applies, it should apply to anywhere. If you are like creating a project with the community, it's really important that you get a letter of support from that community, that you are coming on board with them as a partner. Just because, you know, we've seen in the past projects like this not managed well, and it will come across like you're just trying to benefit from this cause or something like that. So even with our project for Brianna's Garden, we submitted it to the App Store, but obviously Brianna's passing is like such a high profile and sensitive case in America. It was really crucial that we submitted a letter from the family saying that, you know, they're supporting this project. They're a participator, a mutual collaborator. And in my mind, they are a custodian of the project. So want to make sure that we're ticking all of those boxes, that it's all very transparent what our intention is with the projects. And when you present yourself like that and your work, you know, this also brings confidence to the people that are potentially going to fund your project. So those are like, that's a funding conversation. And then like for the commercial stuff, you know, my start in the whole XR space was pretty funny. Like I started using Tilt Brush because somebody left like a whole VR station at my studio for 2 weeks. And this was right at the beginning of Tilt Brush. So I started posting all my videos on Instagram and cheekily @ing Google and @ing Tilt Brush. And sure enough, after a little while, because I was right on the cusp of that beginning, they noticed my work, and I was fortunate enough to be commissioned by them to create some works. And that first endorsement by Google to recognize my work and support it created a snowball effect, where next I was working on Doctor Strange XR project, and then Ready Player One, and all of these interesting like things that I never had in my life before had that that sort of high level of sort of commercial sort of support and interest. So, you know, I would also suggest that's a kind of a little bit of research. Do those little ads, be a bit cheeky. Don't mind to put yourself out there a little bit. Do the tags or whatever. But like, you'll be surprised. And even when I'm like, sorry, I'm rambling on a little bit here, but I just thought of another thing. Like even when I was writing sci-fi comics, I would write random emails to like incredible scientists asking them about their theories and stuff. And I was so surprised whenever I got a reply, and I was like, look, I've got this idea for my story and blah, blah, blah. Do you think this could be legit? Because I'm like writing a sci-fi. And yeah, I would get some awesome replies. So, you know, just put it out there, you know, you never know. And it doesn't hurt anybody if you try. So
I just want to add a little something. I love what Sutu just said you will be surprised the amount of people, because you're passionate. You're going to do something with passion anyway. Reaching out, yes, of course, not 100% of answers will happen, but the people that actually care about their work, they will be so surprised that you even contacting them. Most often than not, you think you're the fan and they are the celebrity, but it's actually the other way around. Just having a chance to talk about what you do, they'll be happy to answer. And whether you're getting the support from the community itself to actually support your work towards an instance, like the example with Brianna Taylor, or the opposite way where you get the support from an actual instance to get a snowball effect, in both cases, it starts with trying to reach out. And I think putting yourself out there, like nurturing that social brand and having a little bit of easiness in this space, unfortunately is a requirement, But I guess that it's getting more and more easy to do that with nowadays tools. And being a part of those like Discord community, like we talked about, or Slack community, someone else that's been through the struggle and the pain will share the tips, and you'll be able to do that. I think with Economies, with the royalties, for example, it's another way to get money after the second market. You can still use Patreon and any other website like this to have the community supporting you, actually spending money on you. But it's always about what you give back. And I think Jose was talking about that earlier. You take as much as you give. So think about what's the value you're bringing on the table. And once you know it, then don't be afraid to ask for it. People will actually support that.
Yeah, great. I think that was sort of leads into something that I wanted to ask people about. I guess some of us are doing NFTs, but there's a lot of, I guess, discussion around how Patreon and, I guess, subscription type services like monetizing YouTube videos, that kind of thing, how that has worked for us as individuals and if it's been effective. And I might, Jose, did you have a Patreon?
Yeah, I attempted that. I think last year so I was working at a HoloLens based LBE startup in the Bay Area. I'll say no more about that. But after leaving that job, I figured, well, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to do the YouTube thing. I'm going to do the Patreon thing. And I was doing a lot of videos about community in XR because I had a lot to say that I wasn't able to do from within the position of a, startup. But I think I don't know. It's, for some people it works, for other people it doesn't. I did the videos, but I didn't have like the whole social Twitter, kind of momentum behind it. And I realized that I prefer doing like live video rather than like doing so much editing like professional YouTubers do. So I think, I don't know. I think it's important just to like play to your own strengths. So, vertical crypto art, which I think is like a gem in the community, in the NFT community. Nicole, she, does like a lot of these live and recorded streams where she like presents and highlights different people in the community. And I think it's there's a lot of value there. I'm not sure if there's like donations coming in or something like that, but I think, if that's something that you want to do with your skill set, then I think a lot of people can benefit from that. Cause there is a lot of noise, but I think, highlighting people there's always value in that.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess bringing the NFT discussion into the mix, because we are close to the hour and we're going to move into our next discussion. And we have a question from the audience that I want to get to too. But I wanted to ask Estella how she has felt about the whole NFT movement. And we're going to be talking more about, I guess, the pros and cons of NFTs and blockchain and why there was a big artist backlash soon. But I guess I just wanted to find out from you, Estella, why have you been apprehensive possibly about them?
I don't think I know enough about it. Like I'm okay to own that. Like when I first saw it come out and just get a lot more hype about it on social, I just wasn't sure. And maybe I was in a place where I was just like, I can't do anything new right now. I need something that is a little bit more like sure and like stable and like a little bit more certain than another kind of like cutting edge type thing. And then the documentation of like how bad it was for the environment like really set me off. And I was just like, I can't, like, I'm doing all this work right now and research and learning about like environmentalism and I moved to Oregon because I wanted to be part of nature and like to just be immersed here in the woods. I live in a forest. So I'm so into this right now. And I had to wait. I had to wait to see. And I know that y'all have been doing incredible work with clean NFTs. I think for myself, I just need to spend the time to learn a bit more before I can jump in. So that's my hesitancy. And I'm okay owning my uncertainty about it.
And I think that, is great thing to be, is because I guess for me, I felt like I jumped in too quick without enough education on it. Because I guess I released my first NFT in February of last year, and that was on the Ethereum blockchain. And when it came to a head, I guess, from Memo Aitken's research, that there was a great environmental impact of blockchain, particularly the Ethereum and Bitcoin, I was pretty disappointed that I had been taking part in this without knowing that. And that's a big reason why I guess I jumped on joining, I guess, bringing a community together so that we could all research and educate with each other. So, and just, debate that, because I think critical thinking is really important in any space you're in.
I think part of it also is like maybe some of the content I was seeing, it didn't resonate with me. I think a lot of it.
You mean Pepe memes?
Yeah. It's just, there's a certain type of, something to be said about taste, I think. So that's important to me, in terms of quality of work, right? And I think that's to be discovered, and not to bash on anyone and anyone in the space. It's just I'm just not quite there yet. I love what Anna's been doing. Anna Dreambrush has been like killing it with her VR stuff and just really optimizing. That's like just the right space for her. I love that she's being just minting her stuff and becoming quite successful at it. It's great.
And I think, it is another avenue that artists can make money from their own personal work. It's not, you're not doing it for a client. It's your own outlet. So because we're close to time, I want to get to this question that we've had from the audience. It was from someone, Jose. Since you're speaking of generating income, I wanted to ask if you are familiar with the iron triangle: cost, time, quality. The less time you have, the higher cost and probably reduced quality. If you do it without the money perspective, like Manu, does that mean that you invest lots of time on your own quality and time to build up your reputation, personal brand, and charge even more?
I love this question. And they were asking also a little bit about how do we charge, I think, per hour, by project, or by phases. And it's exactly that. The triangle still exists in the XR world, unfortunately. Maybe now it's a prism. You have to think about time as well. But it's very interesting, I think, in terms of having that opportunity again and that privilege to still be able to have a source of revenue aside from my art allowed me to invest more into the research aspect, into learning. And like Estella was saying, again, there is so much learning that we have to do right now because things move so fast that it's okay to make mistakes. Maybe we feel bad when we do mistakes that are irreversible. So the way that I'm trying to approach that is by taking even extra time. And last year I've been a huge change for me, not only because of the fact that COVID happened and made me have literally to stop and to reflect, but I was working for the first time in a research lab. And so having a senior research role and having to think about how the world will be in 10 to 15 years and actually literally write patents and design for that makes you even more conscious about the thing that you're doing right now that are wrong. And when it comes to creating work, whether it's with a client or making art, I realized that I was just following the tick-tack of the clock and not really posing myself. And before, I used to charge per project, for example, or per phases of project. And right now, I take it more into, because of that presence, because of that personal brand. Yes, I'm charging more, but I think anyone should continue to increase their price as they grow because you're learning more and you have leverage. And I think Estella touched on that a bit, like you're bringing the legacy of the people you work with before. So that work has to be continuing. You're paying not only for the work, but for the learning. And the way that I see it is that it's better to charge per hour, maybe for some project, but not all projects should be. I think you should be flexible with that and talk with other artists to see how do they actually build their contract. Having that transparency again in those communities is key. And there is a way for XR, at least to continue to mimic what already exists, because not everything is new. We're still creating, at least based on the foundation of the Web 2.0 and flat designs and spatial design, So maybe interest into other more traditional work that maybe weren't part of the digital system. Like, for example, I'm thinking of scenograph, people that are building concert scenes or conferences, architects. These people know how to build spatial space and how to charge that, because there's so much more work to do when you're creating something in 3D. So having more been into the graphical background and UI design, I take a little bit of that background, but I also combine that with more, I would say, traditional art, and create something unique. And you're adding your own uniqueness to the plot. So it's important to also add a price tag to that.
That's terrific. Thank you for that, Manu. So it's on the hour now. I might invite Moon and David and Raphael, if he is around, and to join us in this Google Meet. And while they, I guess, join up, we'll continue. And Estella and Manu, you're very welcome to stay with us, because I would like to hear, more perspectives on everyone as we move into the NFT discussion. But while we, I guess, transition into our next panel, I guess I kind of wanted to ask what sort of future plans, if there was anything interesting you had in the future on the cards. So, Estella, I might start with you.
I want to go. Kind of similar. I just want to kind of respond to the question about the Jose was asking the question of when you're not making art for money, are you doing it for learning, et cetera, et cetera? Don't forget to just have fun and just draw for the sake of letting your inner child have fun. I think sometimes as creative professionals, we get caught up that we have to be producing something for a reason. But think about when you're a kid and you used to just draw for fun, on the floor, you just have your things laid out with crayons. Tap into that. And that in itself is so good and nourishing for your creativity and just your mental health. I think as artists, we need that space to just let loose and play in our art. So just a little friendly reminder about that. Plans for future coming up. I've been working in a plant nursery. For anyone that follows me, I'm living my best life right now, learning about plants. There's these baby hummingbirds that were born, and I've just been watching the baby hummingbirds, and it's just inspiring. There's no specific intent on where this will go in the technological realm, but it's just been something that is enjoy life, especially after the last year and a half. Just remember that there's a huge world with such beauty out there. And as artists, remember to go out there and look and observe and be part of the world out there. So that's what I'm doing right now. Just deep diving in there. I'm not necessarily producing. I don't have a plan to produce anything just yet. I have ideas, of course. I have a 10-page idea list, but we'll see what comes out from it.
I'm jealous of the baby hummingbird.
Oh my God. I posted the video on my Twitter and I was just rooting the little baby on, so you can watch it.
I'm watching it as we talk. And when it comes to the future, I think I'm trying actually to mix what I was saying about design and art, and to actually mix both. I realized when I transitioned from UI to UX 7 years ago now, that the first thing that I still remember from my mentor at the time was literally what Estella was saying. Having fun is something that grown-ups tend to forget, and the inner child is actually the most creative part inside you. So whether you're doing it for fun, whether you're making art, but even in your professional career, you should always let the inner child out a little bit every time and then, because that's where the best ideas come from. Whether I'm doing a design thinking workshop with CEOs from companies trying to think about how to monetize their product, I'll ask them to get in a room when COVID wasn't a thing and remove their shoes and all be in socks and just compare the socks color. That's the best way to break the ice and realize we're all kids. And I think it's important to bring that into our experiences that we create. So if you're making art, the people that follows you and want to pay for what you're doing, that's because they like your persona and they want to be entertained also. So you have to to show that you're having fun doing this. If it's a core and it sounds like a core, no one is really going to be interested. And for me, I'm trying, like I was saying, to mix a little bit of my artistic background with my design. So I find now this opportunity to work at Unity just a perfect timing, because their value is to create a world with more creators in it. And I love this proposal because that's literally what I'm trying to do. So I've been using tools. I've been frustrated with tools. I've been trying to find better way to do stuff. And now I'm transitioning to actually make tools more accessible and more fun to use and more delightful. So people like us or newcomers can actually have those tools to unleash their inner child, to unleash their art. So hopefully I get to create better products. And on the art side, I have a lot of things, but I just cannot talk about it yet.
I feel like I'm a little bit different in terms that while I do have actually 2 Hick and Nook profiles, I've never shilled them on Twitter. I still feel, I don't know when I'll do that. I have to get it out somehow. I haven't really minted any XR work. I've minted like photographs that I've taken that no one will probably want to ever purchase, but like they're up there. I've minted, yeah, Michelle Mullen. I've minted some old like VJ clips that I made back in 2014. But my hesitation has been more so like in terms of like what is art, like what takes a 3D asset, a 3D object from being a game asset to a standalone art piece, art object. What makes that different from like minting a still of that? What makes it different from minting a video or the process video? Yeah, I don't know. There's just like, I haven't gotten over that yet. I'm just too like in my head about what an NFT can be. And I think the other thing that I've done different is I've done a lot of like client work through recently this year through a co-op called Crux. And we've been doing a lot of work for nonprofits. And we just wrapped up a VR chat exhibit with a theater company around Muhammad Ali. And so a lot of client work, a lot of this past year with COVID, looking into investments for both in stocks and in crypto, things that I never thought I would do. But in my head, I thought long term, I was like, okay, I want to make art, but I have to survive. How can I balance the two things? And so I decided to try to go the route of like creating your own residency. So this month for myself, I took off of work and I'm just diving into like writing ideas down for potential NFT projects or just potential, like I want to learn Unreal. There's just things that I want to do for myself that have nothing to do with clients. And, but I had to like almost like buy myself the time to play, because it gets really hard for me when I have to use my creative problem solving brain on client work. And then I'm drained at the end of the day and just cannot, really put the energy into my own stuff. So, and then I have this looking glass portrait.
Yay!
Fun. And so this is, in the past couple of weeks has inspired me to like play around again and see what I can do with it.
So Jose, that's so funny that you're saying this. My first mint on Hikantnang was my little avatar here inside the looking glass and having fun with, interacting with it. And I have the exact same question as you, like, what is art? And I don't think that we should actually answer that. I love the fact that it's a question and it stays a question, because then it allows you to do exactly what you're doing right now. Like you're basically uploading things because you care about them and you want them somewhere. So I see it can be more like a space. It can be a gallery, it can be a portfolio, it can be a shop, but it doesn't have to. And you can interact with your elements and your different objects. Most of my work is 3D, but I don't make it necessarily always interactive. Sometimes I'll collaborate with a creative coder because I just love the fact that we can generate thousands of images. Now, if they sell each of them for $1,000 and become millionaire, amazing. But it's just the idea of doing it that I find fun. And I think it's amazing to stay at this level, because I think, like Sutu was saying, that it's maybe the first part of a long-term journey that will maybe not last and not remain as exciting as the very moment. and we should just enjoy that journey while it lasts, and make it last as much as we can, because that's why will continue to give us that why and that motivation to continue.
That's great. We're just waiting on Moon and Raphael to be let into our Google Meet. So Stephanie, if you can hear us, if you can, yay.
Hi.
Yay. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, great. So I'll just do a quick intro.
Oh, hold on. I need to mute.
Into our next panel. So we're going to specifically be focusing on the NFTs discussion for the next 50 minutes. So I'd like to welcome, we've got Moon, David and Raphael joining us. So I'll ask them to do a quick introduction of themselves, starting with Moon.
Hi, I'm Moon. I'm from Malaysia. I'm a visual artist, pixel artist, poet, and I started doing NFTs in February. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a general
So humble.
David, a quick introduction from you too.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, I'm David Plant, the Executive Director of Trinity Square Video, which is Canada's oldest artist-run media arts centre. For the last year and a half, we've been doing research on how an artist-run blockchain could function to address all of the possibilities that our various artists, collectives, different forms of collaboration could work together. And we've been funded by the Canada Council for the Arts to build out what we have been designing for the last year and a half.
Great. Look forward to hearing more about that. I was going to say this morning, but for everyone else, that's not morning. And Raphael, introduce yourself.
Nice to be here with you all. I'm Raphael. I'm from Brazil, and I'm a smart contract developer. I've developed some smart contracts for over a year. I'm the founder of Economies, and we are trying to build, trying to reproduce some organizational principles in our community, trying to create educational resources, trying to promote projects also related to 3D, VR, and we are excited for having this, trying to keep experimental approach in this NFT space, making it accessible. But yes, nice to be here.
That's great. Thank you. So I guess I wanted to start with a bit of a background on how I suppose Jose, Sutu, and I came together for the clean NFT space, I suppose. And yeah, like I already mentioned, I had been releasing NFTs since February of last year on Ethereum blockchain. I was part of, well, I still am, because my NFTs are still there and have been purchased, which was terrific at the time for me. But yeah, super rare, Maker's Place, known origin. And, you know, I did pretty well. It was a good timing for me because it was when COVID, I guess, was happening, and I lost a few projects, particularly VR. When Memo's, I guess, tweets came out about the environmental impact that he'd been researching of NFTs, and at that time Ethereum blockchain was the main outlet, quite a few of us started to do some of our own sort of research on that. And then I guess early this year, Joni Lemercier also shared some articles, had shared an article he'd written about this impact. And for me, what I was struggling with was having a space to have those discussions, to list those resources that were coming out. So I just created a Discord, and we started this clean NFT Discord. Joni, Sutu, Jose, myself, and Moon. We're all, I guess, moderators, administrators in that group. And it's been 4 months now, 3 or 4 months now, and we've learned a lot. We've got amazing resources like Jose's incredible spreadsheet. And yeah, I might throw to you, Jose, just to sort of talk about why you started that spreadsheet, and also if you want to give the I guess audience a bit of a what's proof of work versus proof of stake.
So the main reason why I started the spreadsheet was because I was seeing this trend where a lot of the artists, collectors, and the platforms themselves on the Ethereum blockchain would push this narrative that NFTs were only possible on that blockchain, or like that was the only way, the only valid way to publish or to mint an NFT. And it rubbed me the wrong way because it wasn't factual in any essence. There were so many other platforms and blockchains that were coming out, that were in development. And, at the time, this was the hype. I think it was right after the Beeple Christie's auction and all of that. And so many people were coming into the space from VR, from all different backgrounds and wanting to kind of like strike gold. And I just kept seeing more people funneled into these other platforms that a lot of them just, they recreate a lot of the inequity and the problems with the traditional art markets. And some of them have made efforts to adjust things. A lot of that because of the pushback from our group and the kind of checks and balances that we've created to try to, create some more, some better practices. But despite that, there was, you can only really compete with the loudest people on social media who have thousands of followers. And if they're on those networks, then people are going to want to be on there with them. And so the spreadsheet was really, it started out as just an experimental open Google sheet. So I was tracking like some of the more well-known platforms, and then I invited other people to add in their platforms. As Sutu was saying before, with the idea of just contacting people directly, I spent a lot of time in the DMs of the developers from these different platforms, and spent a lot of time DMing or tagging if I had to people in the space who, like for example, the CEO of ArtStation when that backlash happened, and just pulling in whoever we could into our space to have these conversations with us and try to push things further, because there was a lot of hesitation where you would hear like, well, Ethereum's going to proof of stake eventually, so why should we bother, right? The funny thing is now we're seeing artists moving to another entirely different network who were primarily on Ethereum, which is odd to me that there was such a holdup, but now everyone's willing to jump over to something else, which from what I understand isn't even really like the same equivalent. I think it's pretty centralized, but anyway. So basically the gist is proof of work blockchains like Ethereum, Bitcoin, they use a lot of resources, a lot of energy, because the miners have to actually run these calculations to validate blocks, and that takes a lot of energy. And on the proof of stake side, a lot of that stuff is done without mining, and so the transactions are being validated by stake pool operators or bakers, or depending on which blockchain you're on, they call it different things. And it requires so much less energy, and the footprint is way smaller, that there really isn't any reason why you wouldn't choose that, other than you already have a vested stake in Ethereum. That's really that's it. That's the only reason why you would want to stick on those networks. So that's really kind of, I guess, have I summed that up pretty well?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess it's probably important to note at the start of this conversation that, yes, you probably might make a lot more money on an Ethereum marketplace at the moment than using something like Tezos and Hikitnut, but that's not to say that won't change, because when I started, it wasn't big money either. It only started to boom, towards the end of last year and, specifically this year. And I might throw to you, Sutu, because you also were releasing on Ethereum marketplaces, and, how you felt, I guess, about that, and what your journey to the clean NFT space.
Yeah, I think like everyone, it was just a big learning curve. There was the Mimo Adkin article that sparked the whole movement and awareness. I had a fan of my work call me out on Twitter, literally say, I'm not going to follow anyone that's doing this anymore, that's minting on such a terrible platform that's so bad for the environment. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? I better educate myself up a little. So I started a series of Clubhouse conversations and Twitter Spaces conversations. That was kind of my way of just bringing some experts on board that were leading thinkers in the field. I brought some people from various platforms into the conversation. I brought environmentalists into the conversation, scientists into the conversation. It was really cool. It was very explosive, learned a lot. It was just like the Matrix, where you download the helicopter pilot sort of thing in one go. It's like, and from there, I sort of came to the same realizations that, the first rule of environmental sustainability is, if there's an alternative out there that's better, then you should opt for that direction. And we learned very quickly that there were alternatives out there. So as Jose was saying, Ethereum uses proof of work, which basically uses all of the computers on the network to process information, whereas the proof of stake will just ultimately use one computer on the network. So the difference is 99.9% more energy efficient on proof of stake. The problem at the time was the proof of stake blockchains nowhere near as much popularity as Ethereum. Ethereum was big buzz and very rich. And it's an inflated market because there's a lot of vested interest there. So, people start selling artworks for $50,000 or more, then there's a big hype. This is, someone could get lucky and strike it rich. It's important to keep in mind, though, that a lot of those huge sales, ultimately going to 300 really rich crypto whales, and that 15% of the 15% of that wealth, something like 99% of that wealth is going 15% to 15% of the artists in the scene, and those artists already have huge social media followings and probably very successful artists in their own right. So also that came into one of our conversations was Raphael, who's the wonderful founder of Economies, that is become this underdog and quickly rising to be the super dog in this whole space. And what we learned from having Raphael on the call was his ethos. He comes from a social science background. He's coming from Brazil. He's wanting to create a platform. I'm just going to speak. I let you speak for yourself, Raphael, but I'm a big fan of everything you do. And so I'm going to just shout you out because I know you are quite humble. But, he's created a platform. They only take 2.5% of the cut from the artists in comparison to other platforms that will take a minimum of 15%. And, traditional galleries will be up to 30%. They will be taking from the artists in the commission. It's costing about 30 cents to mint your artwork on the platform. This means it's more economically accessible to more artists around the planet. This is really, really important because at the moment we've seen the price for gas on Ethereum has ranged between $30 up to $300 at peak periods. And for $300, like one Brazilian artist was saying their monthly salary was $30. So if you're having to pay $300 just to get your art on the platform, that is like 10 months of your salary. It's absurd. So, of course, we want to support these artists. We want to support platforms that make this whole game accessible to everybody. So this was a huge, huge factor for me. And what I learned by joining the Economies platform was that very quickly everyone could become a collector of art. Because, people were putting art up there, and suddenly we were able to purchase art for, and the thing is, when you have a gas fee that's so low, you can mint multiple editions of an artwork. So you can have 30 editions up there. And minting our artwork on Economies is the equivalent of sending a tweet, and this is important when you think about that energy usage transaction. Whereas minting an artwork on Ethereum is the equivalent of releasing 20 kilograms of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is fucking crazy. So these are the sort of the metrics that we're dealing with. And the beautiful thing is all of these great artists who are also programmers have been pulling together this information so that we can see the metrics now. There's tons of awesome research, which is available in the Clean NFTs Discord forum. But back to my point about collecting art, I've personally collected over 100 artworks. I've been and participated in the diverse NFTs groups Object for Object initiative, which was a fantastic initiative where you basically put an artwork up there for free or for a fraction, for 30 cents or something like that. And very quickly, everybody was swapping artworks more or less. And this allowed everyone to become a collector. So everyone could become a collector of Sutu work. I've collected, Manu's work and Moon's work and Michelle's work. It's it's fantastic. And we are all in this together, sort of lifting each other up. And I couldn't think of a more beautiful end result. So bravo to Raphael and all the volunteers. That's the other point. Economies is it's an open source platform. Yep. So everybody's volunteering and supporting, and they just had a huge hackathon, a hackathon that I'll let Raphael elaborate on. But this was a huge effort of development happening over the weekend. But it's a lot of love in the community to make this work, and it is working very well. And we just hit 100,000 objects on the platform recently as well, which is, of any platform, it's the platform that has the most artworks on it, and regularly having the most artworks on it.
And users
it's a
too.
real triumph. Yeah. And users.
Yeah.
Actually, quick stat on that, it's 17 users, but the fun fact is that 12,000 are collectors and artists. And to your point, Sutu, I think this is the platform that also has the most amount of collectors, thanks to that.
Yeah, because all the artists are becoming collectors.
I might, Moon, jump in now because, I want to hear a bit more from you about your journey from Ethereum to Economies as well, and the Malaysian NFT community.
Right. So I kind of jumped into the NFT space, not knowing a whole lot. I just knew the very basics. So how I got involved into NFTs is actually funny story. So I was involved in I'm involved in a fandom, Linkin Park fandom. That's why the name Mumu the Stan. So when Mike Shinoda started doing NFTs in February, this was all before the celebrity hype and before the Beeple auction. So it was still a very new thing that people didn't know about. So he was educating the fans. He's like, do you know about NFTs? I'm thinking about doing it. And the reaction from fans were like, we don't really get it. And I also didn't really get it either. But we like to poke fun at him as fans do. And then so when he dropped one of his NFTs, Linkin Park for life. I kind of just joked well, I have pennies, I can't afford it. And because I've been making these pixel art, fan art gifts for a while, and he's been noticing them and reposting them, he replied to my tweet saying under his NFT thing that I joked on, he was like, if you mint your pixel art as an NFT, I will buy the first one. And so my decision back then was, I confess it was a bit like very like starstruck kind of decision, like oh no, he's gonna buy. So I jumped into it. I kind of just knew the basics of what he introduced to the fandom, like explained, and then and it cost a lot. So it cost like around, at that time the gas fee was really high. It costs around like 1,000 ringgit, which I think is like 300 or 200 something dollars to mint. And the only reason I was confident to start was because I had a guaranteed buyer. I would never have gone into it if I didn't know that I could get something out of it, because it would be a loss, and I would not have the confidence to do it. So after that, I minted another one, and that was the first one where, it was without a guaranteed buyer. That one took a while to sell. In fact, midway through, while we was waiting to sell, that was when the articles about the environmental concerns with the proof of work Ethereum platform started to come out, from Joanne's article, Memo's article. And when I learned about that, I was really like shocked. I had like a bad taste in my mouth. So I started doing research. I paused my activities. I said like, okay, I'm going to either stop doing this thing altogether. I'm going to really dive in. And that's when I got invited into the Clean NFT Discord. So I spent many sleepless nights researching and like just really discussing with the Discord members. And I think when we started doing that, Hic@Nunc was one of like the platforms that was like we were testing out. So that's how I joined Hic@Nunc. I basically started with zero because the minting fee, I think Rafael was the one who sent me 1 Tezos at the time. And yeah.
Thanks, Raphael. Sent me mine
So
too.
the cost of me entering into Hic@Nunc was basically zero. And I made friends and sales. And I'm happy to say that I was able to quit my job after 3 months of doing NFTs on Hic@Nunc. So even though the conversion rate of Tezos isn't as high as like Ethereum, but like because of the starting cost, and because you can mint a lot of NFTs without worrying about like environmental concerns and money, you can mint a lot and then you can make a lot. And, I was able to quit my job. And then talking about like the Malaysia NFT community. So when I started, there were only a handful of Malaysians in the NFT world. And they were like all like separate. They didn't know of each other much. So I was trying to bring everyone together. And that's why I started the Malaysian NFT community. And I kind of just like searched all of the Malaysian artists that I could find. And then we started. It was like maybe there were like 6 artists at first in the whole country. And now we've grown. And actually Hic@Nunc has the most Malaysian artists. And the reason how that came to be is a lot of these artists were concerned with the cost. They didn't necessarily know about the environmental thing, but they knew that Ethereum is expensive. They're like, this costs a lot. So NFXT, which is one of the Malaysian collectives, they throw minting parties. So on Discord, we kind of like stream step by step how to mint, just an introduction to what's an NFT, how do you set up a crypto wallet, the basics of minting, just step by step, and we can guide them each step of the way. And I think this is a great way to bring communities which are not necessarily so familiar with crypto into the space, and especially in in developing countries where you don't necessarily have the resources in the local language. So we could do that, and we cover the minting fees because there has been some generous donors to the Malaysia NFT Fund. So yeah,
It's great.
it's been really cool to see a lot of these artists join the community and bring the Malaysian voice to the world, because we're a small country.
And you,
but also bravo to you. You've done such an incredible job. I see you hustling and bringing everybody together. It's good. You're like popping up all the time.
Yeah, it's a team effort.
Community builder.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, community builder.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that why I guess we all sort of congregate together a bit is because we love the community aspect of it, which is why I kind of want to bring Raphael into the conversation now and ask him why he started Hiccup and how it came about for him.
Yes, like I had this project. I as Sutu mentioned, I have this social science background, but indeed, like blockchain has these core principles around decentralization of finance. For example, people in the third world countries, I believe we see blockchain in a really different way, because like governments are corrupt and they are not transparent, and I don't know, I feel that many things that are public concern, like culture, one of them, should be more should be dealt in public as a public concern, indeed, with public participation and transparency. So I had this idea at Prince to develop. Yes, it is a project trying to develop smart contracts, how this, for example, this logic of distribution of wealth, right? It could work. For example, there was a lot of these discussions some years ago during this last decade around basic social income, but they vanished a bit. But all these discussions are interesting, like how we are going to distribute wealth, and I was trying to design some projects like that, and of course, like I had to research a lot around IPFS, which is where we store the data for NFTs, right? But I was just experimenting when everything came together around November last year. And it was actually really strange, because as a developer, it's not quite easy also to develop or find support for such projects. I have submitted a project proposal for a blockchain foundation for Tezos. I had to prepare it, but it is a bit chaotic, like not many contacts, and there is a difference. For example, a developer from a third world country receives way less than a developer from America or Europe or other places. But and there is a bit of this inequality still in the space, but I feel that the idea is indeed to bring content for people to be aware technologically also. people should be aware of how to develop smart contracts or their own smart contracts for NFTs. Also, it is a more of an educational process, because, for example, when I joined blockchain in 2017, there wasn't really this possibility, but it's interesting for us to focus on this right, in this moment. But yes, like when we started, there was a huge coincidence. Like when we launched it was in March, and there was this Joanny discussion and the green NFT discussion. It's interesting, actually. The Sutu clubhouse was really interesting. We could even try bring more discussions like that on Twitter, also inviting people, because there are still many divergent views on NFTs. So yes, it is interesting for us to keep discussing this. But yes, like many people joined, like Mario, which is an artificial intelligence artist, and some other people. But yes, like as the project is open source, many technologies were integrated. Also, like these model viewers, for 3D, and actually, I many of these art styles I didn't know, actually. For example, AI art or VR technologies, I was actually introduced by also Rick, So it's interesting. I feel that many people should have also this opportunity to learn about this. Even I want to experiment with it, but like, and indeed, for example, some friends like Rodrigo, which is a early artist that is in the platform. He's also from Brazil. I always loved his work, and sometimes I feel that the platform, you can support an artist for them to build their own projects, or so they can keep experimenting. And so they but indeed, like many people from Brazil, like or Southeast Asia, or like there was this event recently from Turkey, right? Many people from, and of course many people from the whole Latin America is using the platform because of this accessibility aspect of like the cost. So it is a sort of, I don't know, it is a community, it is a sort of social network. And the idea is to keep it light for people to experiment without much risk. But yes, like some things that like we're recently thinking is more in this project management thing, also like how communities can organize themselves and have a sustainable way to keep experimenting, like how to have decentralized laboratories, or for research, or because
providing that education to others, I think, is really important in this space, because it is a high learning curve. Yeah.
Yes, like many. It is curious because, for example, here in Brazil, the science, even science, doesn't have funds, So it's curious, like if we can build, how we can build, a sustainable and economical architectures. It's something for us to seek indeed and discuss. And like we are trying to develop some residencies, some sort of like to support mostly third world or people or projects from emerging countries. But yes, like I really feel that it's important, this experience, like as I have experienced this once, like how to build these projects, how to design this, or how to prototype it and try to build it, or in a do-it-yourself sometimes way, but also in a collaborative way. I think it's an interesting spirit for us to keep working on.
And I really appreciate that sort of DIY aspect, but also, the accessibility you're trying to bring to the space. I think that's really one of the, main reasons I'm so passionate about Hikit as well. And I guess I wanted to bring David into the chat now to talk about, because I'm really, really interested and excited to hear more about what you've been working on.
Well, thanks very much, Michelle. I would also just like to say to Raphael, I'm a huge admirer of what you've done and the notion about empowerment and decentralization and protecting the artists and making it accessible by open sourcing it is a terrific approach. And I think just everybody who's participating today at VRTO and everybody else who follows the activities on the various Discord channels like Clean NFT and folks that are paying attention to Tezos and stuff really are extraordinarily impressed and pleased with what you've done. As I said at the beginning, I run an artist-run center, and artist-run culture, for some of you who may be watching who don't understand where it's coming from, is really based on empowerment of the artist first. It was created 50 years ago, slightly more than 50 years ago, as a response to what was considered to be the commercialized art market and institutional gallery markets, which benefit a few, but mostly they benefit the investors and the collectors. They don't really benefit the artists. And I mean, even today, I'm talking to you from New York City. I normally am in Toronto, but I mean, the art market does not really pay residual fees the way that, say, other forms of media do. If you're, in film or television or something like that, and your work gets shown again, or if you're a recording artist, well, at least maybe not so much in the last 20 years, but certainly it used to be that if somebody sold your music, that you would get a residual based on how many copies of it were sold. So we came to this really not thinking about it as a marketplace or a transaction, but really thinking about the notion of an original. How do you determine what is an original in the digital art space? It's really tricky, especially with digital art creation, to establish that this is the work of the artist. I mean, it's so easy to just grab a screen grab or a shot of something, or to derive work based on other work. So we were thinking about it really more in the notion of authentication. And we were also thinking about it in the notion of decolonization and decentralizing hierarchies, because a number of our artists are also of Indigenous background, and they have different traditional protocols around who has the capacity or the right or the access to certain works, because they may have cultural significance, or they may be sacred in some way. And this applies not only to traditional Indigenous cultures, but also many other kinds of cultures where someone might be, as an artist, might be willing to share something with their friends. But if an institution like a museum or a gallery or even an educational institution approaches them, their response might be different. So that got us thinking about what's the possibility of using smart contracts to capture the artist's intention for their work. And at the point of creation, just when you're before you even get to the point of minting, having the opportunity to decide what are the frameworks that people would use was part of what we were trying to consider. And we have about 350 producing artists that are members, and we are engaged with about 40 other organizations across Canada who all are engaged in certain aspects of media art creation. We work in virtual reality, XR, AR, as well as in traditional forms of media creation. And, if you think about something like a little documentary film or something that might be an art installation in a gallery, there are whole groups of components that are associated with it, which might be part of an artistic practice. If you develop, I'm sure Manu is a good example. If you develop a three-dimensional character, that character will become a component that appears more than once in your work. And, maybe it's interesting to have a way of tagging that asset through a proof of stake or some other low-level indication that this is my work. One of the conversations that I had with Karen before we even thought about this participating in this channel, this chat, was, in the case of music, for example, I'm obviously showing my age, but if we had the ability to tag all of the assets in a particular recording, we would have known at the time of listening to it who was singing the backup vocals or what session musicians were playing the bass on this particular track. And the same kind of thing could apply in media art. So what we have been funded to do by the Canada Council is we've done our research, we've talked to collectives, we've talked to various types of artistic practices, some of whom are much more conceptual, some of whom are, doing the kind of digital work that we see so many in so many EFTs or NFTs. But the thing that is interesting here is, how do you collaborate if, for example, you're doing a piece and you've got a modeler who's doing a three-dimensional object. You may have an animator who's doing an animation sequence. You might have someone who is providing sound, a soundscape, a sound base. And each one of those artists might wish to retain some attribution for their component, and they may wish to reuse or rework some of those pieces in other pieces that they work. How do you build a smart contract to accommodate those kinds of things? But the notion would be for collectives and for other groups that are coming together to work, that we would have like a layer of almost like a production pipeline. For those that have worked in computer games or in animated films, you'll understand that you can have check-ins and check-outs along the process before we finally get the approval and say, this is it. And so we're building a layer above the actual minting process that will allow groups to collaborate using authorized assets. And we have done some preliminary work just to make sure that we understood most of what Raphael's already built, but we're also looking at having something which will be a prototype that we can roll out for testing in about the middle of next year. We've done a lot of engineering and have had some success, but the key for us is understanding all of the variables. It's not one size fits all. It's, as Jose was saying, well, what is art? Well, we tried to consider the variations that one artist might have or the intentions they might have for their practice, for their body of work, and said, is there a place that we could use the blockchain to, put an imprimatur on it that people will say, yes, I know that this is Jose's work, right? Anyway, that's what we're working on right now.
That sounds really exciting, and super keen to track your progress. So we'll definitely be following along with that. So we don't have much long to go. We have to wrap up. So I thought I'll give you each a quick. I'm going to get one sentence. Don't waffle. Looking at Sutu. To close out. I'll throw to Jose. You can just one thing you'd like to leave the audience with today.
So I'm going to plug something. So I have yet another spreadsheet in the works, and I'm looking for potentially any data visualization experts who might want to collaborate. And I'll leave it at that. If you want to learn more, come to the Clean NFT Discord.
Great. Thanks. Sutu, what's your one line?
Thank you, everyone, for coming along today. You're all beautiful, wonderful people. I'm so happy to share the stage with you all. I finished the animation whilst we were chatting away, so not sure if you can see.
Awesome. Yay.
That's so cool.
Busy. Yay. But have a good day, and I don't have any sort of passing or final comments other than
Will you mint that? Are you going to mint that?
Yeah, that'll go up on Hick et Nunc. Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Stay
Moon.
See you in the metaverse.
So NFXT, the Malaysian Collective and Malaysia NFT community, we're going to organize another minting party on the 18th, 2 weeks from now. This time, we're going to focus on women and non-binary artists of Malaysia. So stay tuned for that. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Moon. Raphael, final words for today?
Yes, it was great to meet. Let's keep building this community in an open way, inviting people, trying to make it welcoming place, and experimenting with the metaverse, with its possibilities. Really anxious to see the creativity of people occupying this space.
Thank you. And David, last words.
Well, if you are going to be part of VRTO, which I am sure you all will be, please join us at the Trinity Square Video Hub every evening. I think about between 5 and 5:30 Eastern time. And we can have a happy NFT hour if you like.
That sounds terrific. And thank you for that, David. And everyone, a big shout out to Karem for pulling this all together and letting us present today. I appreciate it. And we'll be popping in and out of the Discord. So any questions, hit us up. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go to bed and try and get some sleep. Yay.
Thank you, Michelle.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.